When we think of grooming children, we most often think of pedophiles. And even though there are a significant number of pedophiles and grooming taking place by pedophile pastors in the Christian church, you don't believe me, just every week or two, go to your search engine and type in the words pastor charged. And every week you're going to come up with new cases. That's just the ones that get caught. But I'm talking about an even bigger grooming effort taking place in the world of Christendom. The grooming process is almost identical to fundamental religious indoctrination. As long as I live, I'll never understand why more people don't express fury over the horrible atrocities that the church has committed and continues to commit. People express fury over other belief systems and their atrocities. But for some reason, you attach Christianity, there's excuse. Oh, they weren't real Christians. Well, they are just human. You hear the gamut of excuses, don't you? I suppose the real answer to that is that our whole society has been itself indoctrinated to accept the behavior of the church. Christianity, don't touch. In a sense, our entire culture has been groomed to become an accessory for abuse. The basic tenets of religion are to blame. Good parents need to cultivate a zero tolerance attitude toward behaviors common to predators. Would you not agree? Ultimately, you, the parent, are responsible for the well-being of your child or children. You can't or should not turn a blind eye just because the guilty party has a social status that you've been conditioned to respect. That respect is an element of abuse conditioning. Predators have learned to camouflage themselves. It's amazingly hypocritical that Republican politicians will say that schools shouldn't teach the truth about slavery, racism, and other American atrocities because students have the right to feel good about themselves. Yet they say nothing when preachers threaten children with being burned in hellfire for all eternity. I'm going to deviate from what I'm saying here to bring attention to this weekend's Easter holiday, the symbolisms of instruments of execution, the cross. Child is born. Immediately, the child is drugged into an environment that we call Christianity, religion, and they're told that they were born sinners and that 2,000 years ago, someone had to die. That's how guilty they are of this sin they were born into, that someone had to die, executed on this cross that we proudly display all over the place as if it were something to be exalted, like an electric chair or a hangman's noose. But we do it, and we teach the kids that they're such a wretch that not only did someone have to die for them, they are to symbolically and ritualistically drink the blood and eat the flesh of this executed man. We've simply got to train ourselves to stop having this blind spot to the dangerous and abusive lunacy of religion. Guilt is synonymous with religion, and it sometimes creates terrible problems that people have to contend with their entire lives. It's so insidious that the church essentially decided to lever all of its power on the concept of guilt. Guilt's a very strong emotion, and vulnerable people are sometimes in desperate need of help. Unfortunately, when predators recognize that vulnerability, they see an opportunity, not a responsibility. This is not to say the church was conceived as a massive mechanism for pedophiles, but you're delusional if you can't recognize that it's been corrupted to become exactly that. Psychologists have made advancements in understanding the mentality of predators. It's not a coincidence that manufacturing guilt has become one of their primary weapons. Offenders often blame the child for their abusive behavior towards them by telling them that if they did not do X, Y, or Z, the abuse would not have happened. I've seen it in churches. Whole sermons given on the men can't control themselves because the women wore the wrong type of clothes. The women dresses were too short. The women groomed themselves the wrong way. It's the woman's fault, the victim's fault. I've seen the perpetrator protected in churches, while the poor little child, the victim, is blamed. I've seen it destroy lives, totally destroy lives. By making the child feel responsible and shameful about what happens, they are reinforcing the dependency the child has on them. They still love them even though they do these bad things, and it increases the child's commitment to protecting the secret. Oh, yes, very much so. The purpose of a church should be to help people release themselves from their guilt. Over the years, the church has become a source of guilt. Their treatment of members of the LGBTQ community, to name just one example, has been deplorable. There's enough guilt in life already without having massively funded organizations going out of the way to create more. As a parent, you're putting your child in harm's way if you take them somewhere that is hyper-focused on demanding that you should feel guilty about everything. Throughout my life, it's always been my experience that individuals who attend a certain church tend to hang out in groups together and regard outsiders with suspicion. I see that in my own neighborhood. As an older man, I see that in my own neighborhood because I don't fit into their church-going mode. Perhaps it's a regional phenomenon. I don't think so. It's commonplace in Alabama. There are a lot of different recruiting efforts made by certain families. People appear to be nice, but something seems always a little off. The overly nosy neighbor, for instance. It was as if our own needs weren't their primary concern, and they were instead acting out some odd and ill-advised sense of obligation. Saving your soul because you're guilty. Saving your soul because you're guilty. Have you accepted Jesus because you're guilty? In one case, a girl came home from school and said that the mother of one of her friends didn't allow her to read Harry Potter. And we know about the book burning in Tennessee by Greg Locke, because it was an endorsement of witchcraft. Even that act cuts off an avenue of interaction with the child's peers. Once you isolate individuals, you've got control over them. And that's what they want to do. Don't associate. Oh, I heard the First Corinthians, 5th chapter and verse, bad association spoils useful habits. Oh, God, that's drilled into you. Once you isolate individuals, I'll say this again, you have control over them. The predator will begin distancing the target from friends and family. Stay away from that family. Oh, man, I'm familiar with that. Stay away from that, folks. You want to stay away from this one, you want to stay away from that one. This can be done in multiple ways, including surprisingly positive methods, such as compliments and favors. The predator may tell the intended victim that they feel an especially strong connection to them, or that they understand each other in a special way that no one else can get. Control is the predator's intent. Religion does not offer freedom. Religion is a controlling technique by its very nature. It limits and restricts behavior. It limits and restricts everything about your life because of guilt. By appearing calm and convincing, the predator is seeking to increase their influence over the victim to advance their agenda. Again, this form of grooming, and it is grooming, is simply built into the standard practices of most religions. One married woman used to be a regular churchgoer until the priest started getting a little bit too hands-on, if you know what I'm saying. The worst part of this form of grooming is that it corrupts what is a very effective way of providing true comfort. So grooming starts with non-sexual touching, such as accidental or playful touching to desensitize the child, so the child does not resist a more sexualized touch. The offender then exploits the child's curiosity to advance the sexuality of the interaction. When your child is upset, there's nothing you can say or do that is better than just giving him or her a hug. Imagine how cruel a person has to be to subvert an innocent hug into a preliminary act of abuse. If the poor victim ever manages to escape the clutches of the abuser, she or he is likely to have forfeited forever the natural comfort of physical contact. I'm familiar with that. What chance does this person have of navigating future difficulties if the comfort of an honest embrace has been forever stolen from them? These are the people to keep in mind when hysterical, militant zealots start frothing at the mouth about concepts such as religious freedom. There is a threat hidden in plain sight, and it's irresponsible that our society refuses to recognize it. Churches are danger zones for your children, plain and simple. In fact, they're so dangerous that any public service announcement warning about the dangers of child predators that fails to mention religion is criminally irresponsible. If you are religious and this hurts your feelings, I don't care. What I care about is protecting innocent children. What's the matter with you? Our society needs to recognize and accept that the natural structure and organization of the church lays out children for child molesters like a buffet. In one study, 93% of convicted sex offenders describe themselves as religious. 93%. Perhaps surprisingly, many sexual predators consider churches as safe havens. I can prove this. with trusting, forgiving adults and easy access to children. It's important to know that pedophiles seem attracted to becoming members of the clergy. There are many positions that offer tremendous power with very little to no accountability. The enabling of the church of predatory members has been well documented. Fact. It's disgusting to think that there are so many abusers who are such appalling and malicious hypocrites that they can pivot from abusing a child to lecturing a crowd of adults on the wickedness of sin. Everything seems so unreal. It's a quote. My stepfather was a popular minister with a real big congregation. The people who came to church on Saturday just loved him. Sunday just loved him. I remember sitting in church, listening to him, listening to his sermons about mortal sin. I just wanted to scream out that this man is a hypocrite. I wanted to stand up and testify in front of the whole church that this so-called wonderful man of God is screwing his 13-year-old stepdaughter. These fraudulent individuals present themselves as passive and compassionate, but the second their power is threatened, they are capable of extreme violence. Perhaps our society is collectively aware of the threat that lurks just beneath the surface. We catch a glimpse of it when we witness the spittle rage of a fiery sermon. Perhaps the vision of hell they illustrate with such attention to detail is simply the reality they'll inflict upon us if we stand up to their enduring mechanism of child torture. Is it all just a veiled threat that we should remain silent? Is the church dead set on grooming everyone? It's important that the parents are aware of the nefarious and manipulative tactics of abusers. Abusers might attempt to leverage parental authority and use it as part of their abusive strategy. A predator might touch your child in your presence so that he or she thinks that you are comfortable with that touching. This act might be as simple as draping an arm over the child's shoulder or asking for a hug to say goodbye. Abusers often coerce those around them to inadvertently contribute to their grooming pattern. They cultivate an array of abuse contributors that are known as flying monkeys. And they're named after minions of the Wicked Witch and the Wizard of Oz. Most often, flying monkeys have no idea they're being used to groom a subject because they have been convinced by the predator that he's not a bad guy, as in his intentions are correct. They're often the abuser's friends or family, spouses, girlfriends, children, friends, or siblings, enlisted by the predator to dismiss the victim's concerns. A manipulator may also convince the victim's friends or family members to side with them, or even authority figures such as police officers or pastors to side with the abuser rather than the victim. Yes, I've seen it. I know it's a fact. If you observe or are otherwise aware of behavior that indicates abuse and you do nothing, you are an active contributor to that abuse. Anyone who refuses to discuss or recognize the crimes of the church falls into this category. This is why it's important to resist actions out of reluctance to create a socially awkward scene. If a preacher taps your child on the shoulder, you should say, "Do not touch my child." If that makes the preacher embarrassed, you've done your job as a parent. This is also why it's important for everyone to speak out against routine church behaviors that align with abuse. Abusers always try to turn the table and act like they are the victims. Our cultural inclination to turn a blind eye to the blatant transgressions of the church has transformed us all into accessories to child abuse. It's amazing the contortions people will go through, even those educated in the field of psychology, to avoid arriving at a conclusion that couldn't be more blatantly obvious. All anyone has to do is look at the basic steps abusers use to groom children into becoming their victims. It's what the church does. The church down your street is methodically going through all the steps one after another and ticking them off as if there were no problem. And this isn't hypothetical. Go talk to victims about who it was that abused them. They'll tell you. Why is our nation, the United States, so tolerant of this? The evidence has been collected. We know who's raping our children. We have to speak out and put a stop to this ongoing atrocity. Don't send your children to church. That's where all the pedophiles are. We have to warn our children about the dangers hidden in plain sight. We have to protect them. But it goes even deeper. Even if it's not on the level of pedophile, the grooming is taking place. Look at Christmas and Easter. First, two totally non-biblical celebrations that have become Christendom's largest holidays, have no basis of authority to be celebrated in biblical terms, both heavily laden with pagan symbolism, easily found in history. No apologetics can get over that. This weekend, March 17th, Friday, yesterday, Good Friday, coming into March. Look, what are we doing? We're enticing the kids. We're bringing them into and grooming them for this belief system. It is a grooming technique. That's why we insist on the Easter egg hunt, the painting the eggs, the rabbits, the colors, the Easter baskets. That has nothing to do with the Christ story, period. Nothing to do with the Christ story, period. It's a grooming technique to get them indoctrinated, to get them groomed, to set them up for a life of feeling guilty if they don't participate, and if they don't let their children participate in the future. Because it is our tradition. It is what we do. Christmas. Hey, little girl, what you want for Christmas? Hey, little boy, what you want? What's Santa getting you for Christmas? We put a little bit of Jesus in each of these pagan holidays to make it feel comfortable in the church, when all it is a grooming technique, not much different than, hey, little kid, give me a hug. Let me get you used to me touching you. We're saying, hey, Easter, it's about Jesus, but look at these pretty eggs. Look at the pretty clothes. Look at the fun. They're going to drop eggs out of an airplane, out of a helicopter. Don't you like these colors? Don't you like this fun? Look at the little rabbit. Isn't that cute? And we tie that in with this religion. So we have groomed them so they have a superficial thing. They don't have any depth about the story of Christ. None at all. Nobody's encouraging them to read Matthew 5, 6, and 7. I guarantee you that. But you're a wretch. You're a sinner. The guilt is there. Come to the church. We've got colored eggs. Look at the wonderful celebration. We do fun things for the kids. The kids. We're going to Vacation Bible School. We're going to a camp. Come, join us, will you? Come, be a part of us. We're going to make it fun. Christmas is about Jesus, but Santa, The Christmas tree. What are you getting for Christmas? Are you ready to go? Have you got your Easter basket? The grooming is rampant in the Christian church. It is not a joke, it's real. And you're not protecting your kids. You're not even thinking about your kids, except they got to be a part of this. It's our tradition, it's what we do, right? It's what we do. You're guilty because you're an accessory. You're supporting it. And for the most part, don't even realize what you're supporting. It's a joke. It is a horrible, evil joke called religion and called church. Look, open your eyes. It's easy to find pedophiles in church every week. Another pastor, another pastor, another pastor, pedophile, pedophile, pedophile. And that's just on that end of it. Come to church. We got camp this weekend. Oh, I was part of the church. What do we talk about? We're not talking about Jesus. We're planning. We're going to go do the zip lines. We're going to play disc golf because we're going to trap these kids into this environment. Stay away from them non-church kids. In fact, tell them about Jesus. You want to hear about Jesus? Jesus died for you, accept Jesus. And guess what? The fun we're having at my church. We're having fun. We got a great youth group at my church. You got to come down and be part of my youth group. We have fun. Grooming the kids. From pedophiles in church, the whole thing is set to trap you into an eternity of guilt and slavery to an institution called Christendom.